Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us again this evening. You can see we've got pretty much the whole flock with us. Gabriel is not able to be on this evening yet, but did want to share devotional from another one from Brennan Manning called The Healing of the Heart. And this one, he writes, experientially, the inner healing of the heart is seldom a sudden catharsis or an instant liberation from bitterness, anger, resentment, and hatred. More often, it is a growing into oneness with the crucified, who has achieved our peace through his blood on the cross. This may take considerable time because the memories are still so vivid and the hurt still so deep, but it will happen. The crucified Christ is not merely a heroic example to the church. He is the power and wisdom of God, a living force in his present risenness, transforming our lives and enabling us to extend the hand of reconciliation to our enemies. And the scripture reading, Ezekiel 11:19. This God speaking, I will give them an undivided heart and put a new spirit in them. I will remove from them their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. You know, as I think about that, obviously, he starts out and kind of concludes with, what does it look like in our lives as God is changing us and transforming us? How do we learn to let go of the bitterness? How do we experience healing in that brokenness? How do we truly forgive? How do we reconcile? All of those things. And one obvious thing that he's saying is that it takes time, but really what captured me in reading that tonight was the insistence that it's not just trying to summon up a heroic effort to forgive. It's not like as if we just try hard enough, it's going to happen, or just work for it. But what he says is, he says it happens gradually, which I think is an important piece too, right? Is that sometimes our expectations are that it ought to be all right at once, that, the moment that I say, I forgive you, or the moment we feel we ought to forgive someone by faith, it just all happens at once. And I know God works that way sometimes. But what he's talking about is oneness with Christ, is about as our lives are caught up together in Christ, as we're united with God, that's when that life of Jesus starts to take a hold of us and transform us. And it's tough to talk about this kind of thing because it's almost impossible without getting into sort of mystical language that frankly sometimes we're a little uncomfortable with, not only in our Baptist, those of us who are Baptists joining us tonight, the Baptist perspective or a scientific perspective, or just the head and all of that. But there's a sense in which isn't to say any of those things are exclusive to one another, but just that sense that there is a mystical level, a sense in which we're understanding that Christ crucified is how God operates, that God's way in the world is not the way of power, the way that we would aim at it and understand it, our desire to control, our desire for quick fixes, our desire for God to just come in and stop things and make it different and make it better. But that it is an entirely different way. And it is in God, as we're connected in the life of God, that our hope really resides. And it's a message that Paul talked about as foolishness to the Greeks and a stumbling block for his own people. And in fact, it was a stumbling block for him until he found himself radically encountering the grace and the love of God. And so tonight I would just invite us to think about that. What is it about God who reveals God's self in Jesus, who is crucified and raised, and now is glorified, reigning at the right hand of God the Father Almighty? What is that reveals God to us and that as we are united in Christ, allows us to experience, not only experience our own freedom, but to free others as well. And God bless you and be with you wherever you are in your journey tonight. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. Take care. God bless.